Captain Jake Morrison stared out at the massive structure floating in the darkness of space. The thing was huge, bigger than any space station humans had ever built. It looked old and dead, with no lights showing anywhere on its dark metal surface. His ship, the UES Pathfinder, had been exploring this sector for 3 months when they found it. "Captain, I'm getting some very strange readings from that station," said Dr. Lisa Hayes from her science station. She was the best xenobiologist in the fleet, and if she was worried, Jake knew he should pay attention. "The energy patterns don't match anything in our databases." Jake walked over to look at her screen. Numbers and graphs filled the display, but he could see what had caught her attention. There were massive power systems inside the station, all of them shut down. Whatever this place was, it had been designed to support a lot of life. "How old do you think it is?" Jake asked. Lisa ran more scans before answering. "Based on the metal decay and radiation patterns, I'd say at least 500 years. Maybe more. But Captain, look at this." She pointed to another readout. "The design isn't random. This was built for a specific purpose, and that purpose required holding a lot of living beings." Engineer Sam Parker looked up from his station. He was a big man with grease-stained hands who could fix anything that broke. "Captain, I'm picking up what looks like docking ports, big ones. Ships much larger than ours used to dock there." Jake made his decision. "We're going aboard. Lisa, Sam, and Rodriguez, you're with me. Everyone else stays on the ship and keeps the engines warm." 20 minutes later, Jake found himself floating through an airlock into the dead station. Their suit lights cut through the darkness as they moved down a corridor that was wide enough to drive a truck through. The walls were made of some kind of dark metal that seemed to absorb their light. "This place gives me the creeps," muttered Rodriguez, the security chief. He had his weapon ready, even though their scans showed no life signs anywhere on the station. They moved deeper into the structure, following corridors that branched off in all directions. The place was like a maze, but Lisa's scanner was tracking their path so they wouldn't get lost. After an hour of exploration, they found what they were looking for. "Dear God," whispered Sam as they entered a massive chamber. The room stretched out beyond their lights, filled with row after row of metal restraints. Each restraint was designed to hold a humanoid figure, but they came in different sizes. Some were small enough for children, others big enough for creatures twice the size of a human. There were thousands of them. "These are shackles," said Lisa, her voice shaking. "This whole room is designed to hold prisoners." Jake felt sick as he looked around. This wasn't a space station. It was a prison ship, designed to transport massive numbers of captives. But from where and to where? They found more rooms like the first one. Storage areas filled with restraints and processing equipment. Medical bays with examination tables that looked more like torture devices. And in what must have been the command center, they found something that would change everything. Sam was the first to spot the data cores. They were crystal formations built into the walls, still glowing faintly with stored information. "Captain, these things are still active. Whatever power source this place uses, it's built to last." Lisa connected her equipment to the alien data system. It took her 3 hours to crack the basic language protocols, but what she found made her call Jake over immediately. "Captain, you need to see this. This station belonged to something called the Hegemony, and according to these records, they're slavers. Big-time slavers." The data painted a picture that got worse with every file they translated. The Hegemony was a massive empire that spanned dozens of star systems. They had perfected the art of enslaving entire species, turning them into workers for their civilization. "Look at this list," Lisa said, pointing to her screen. "The Altarians, enslaved 800 years ago. The Centauri Collective, taken 600 years ago. The Vegan Commonwealth, captured 400 years ago. Jake, there are dozens of species on this list. Entire civilizations that just disappeared." Sam found the technical specifications for the Hegemony's ships and weapons. They were advanced, more advanced than anything humans had developed. Energy shields that could stop any weapon, faster than light drives that made human ships look like toys, and weapons that could crack planets. But it was the final set of files that made Jake's blood run cold. Lisa's face was white as she read them aloud. Target designation Sol 3. Species designation human. Intelligence level sufficient for advanced labor. Population approximately 8 billion. Recommendation for immediate harvest approved. Fleet dispatch authorized. Jake stared at the screen. When was this sent? Lisa checked the timestamp. "According to this, the harvest fleet was dispatched 18 months ago. But Captain, Look at the date on this station's final log entry. She brought up another file. The last entry was from 2 years ago, and it told a story of rebellion and destruction. The slaves on this processing station had somehow broken free of their restraints. They had fought back against their captors and won, but the victory had cost them everything. The station's life support had been damaged in the fighting, and everyone aboard had died. The slaves destroyed this place rather than let it be used again, said Sam quietly. They knew they were going to die, but they made sure the hegemony couldn't use it to hurt anyone else. Rodriguez was studying the tactical data. Captain, if this harvest fleet left 18 months ago, they could be at Earth right now. Jake felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. Somewhere out there, a fleet of alien slavers was heading for Earth. They planned to enslave every human being on the planet, to turn humanity into just another entry on their list of conquered species. We need to get this information back to Earth immediately, Jake said. Lisa, copy everything. Sam, see if you can figure out how their technology works. Rodriguez, search for any weapons or defensive systems we can learn from. As they worked frantically to gather intelligence, Jake couldn't stop thinking about the slaves who had died on this station. They had sacrificed themselves to send a warning, to give other species a chance to fight back. Now it was up to humanity to make sure their sacrifice meant something. The hegemony was coming, but they would find humans very different from the passive species they were used to conquering. Jake just hoped they would have enough time to prepare for the fight of their lives. Admiral Kate Williams sat in the emergency session room at Global Defense Command, watching the holographic display show Jake Morrison's evidence for the third time. The room was filled with the most powerful people on Earth, and every single one of them looked terrified. President John Carter leaned forward in his chair. Admiral, how long do we have? Kate checked her notes. Based on the data from the alien station, the hegemony fleet left their territory 18 months ago. Our best estimates put them at the edge of our solar system within the next 4 to 6 months. General Frank Miller, head of the Global Army, shook his head. We're not ready for this. Our space forces are designed for exploration and asteroid mining, not warfare against an advanced alien empire. Then we make ourselves ready, said President Carter firmly. I'm authorizing the largest military mobilization in human history. Every nation, every corporation, every person who can contribute will be part of this effort. Dr. Alex Johnson spoke up from his seat near the back. He ran the Mars Research Facility and had been quiet during most of the meeting. Mr. President, we might have more advantages than we think. The alien data cores Jake's team recovered contained detailed information about hegemony technology and tactics. Kate pulled up the technical analysis on the main screen. Dr. Johnson is right. The hegemony relies heavily on energy-based weapons and defensive shields. Their ships are fast and well protected, but they've never faced an enemy that uses kinetic weapons. Kinetic weapons? Asked the president. Railguns, mass drivers, good old-fashioned bullets and missiles, explained General Miller. We've been developing these technologies for decades because they're cheap and effective. The aliens apparently never encountered a species that still used them. Dr. Johnson stood up and walked to the display. There's more. The hegemony's slave soldiers are controlled through neural implants. According to the data, these implants can be disrupted by specific electromagnetic frequencies, frequencies that our communication systems already use. Kate felt the first spark of hope she'd had since seeing Jake's report. Are you saying we can turn their own soldiers against them? Potentially, yes. But we need to test it first, and we need to prepare countermeasures in case they adapt. President Carter made his decision. Do it. Dr. Johnson, you have unlimited resources and authority. General Miller, I want every military facility on Earth and Mars working around the clock. Admiral Williams, start retrofitting every ship we have. Over the next few weeks, Earth transformed into a fortress. Every shipyard worked day and night to build new vessels and upgrade existing ones. The asteroid mining ships were converted into warships, their industrial equipment replaced with railguns and missile launchers. Commander Rick Davis led the retrofit program at Luna Shipyards. He was a former Navy engineer who understood both human technology and the alien specifications they were working from. The key is hitting them hard and fast, he explained to his team. Their shields can absorb energy, but they've never dealt with a solid tungsten rod moving at a significant fraction of light speed. On Mars, Colonel Beth Anderson was training the first units of what would become the Solar Defense Corps. These soldiers would fight both in space and on planetary surfaces, using the electromagnetic disruption technology against enslaved alien forces. Remember, she told her troops during training, the aliens we'll be fighting aren't our enemies. They're victims just like we would be if we lose this war. Our job is to free them, not destroy them. The alien data cores revealed that the hegemony operated on a simple principle. They would arrive at a star system, demand surrender, and when the inhabitants refused, they would demonstrate their power by destroying a few cities. Most species surrendered at that point, accepting slavery over extinction. Kate realized this gave humanity a crucial advantage. They expect us to give up after the first demonstration. They're not prepared for a prolonged fight. The preparation was massive but organized. Every human colony contributed what they could. The asteroid belt miners provided raw materials. The lunar factories manufactured weapons and ammunition. The space stations became defensive platforms. Dr. Alex Johnson made breakthrough after breakthrough as he studied the alien technology. Their faster-than-light communication system is actually vulnerable, he announced during one briefing. If we can jam their command frequencies, their fleet coordination will collapse. President Carter authorized the construction of massive jamming arrays on Earth, Mars, and the outer planets. If the aliens wanted to coordinate their attack, they would have to do it the old-fashioned way, with light-speed signals that would take hours to cross the solar system. Meanwhile, Admiral Kate Williams was assembling the defense fleet. Ships that had been built for peaceful exploration were now armed with weapons designed to punch through alien shields. The cargo haulers became troop transports. The research vessels became electronic warfare platforms. We have one major advantage, Kate told her fleet commanders. We're fighting for our home. Every human in this system knows that surrender means slavery or death. That kind of motivation is something the hegemony has never faced before. Captain Lucy Chen commanded one of the new destroyer-class ships. Her vessel, the UES Defiant, was built specifically to fight the hegemony. It was fast, heavily armed, and designed to operate in the close-quarters combat that human tactics favored. The aliens like to fight at long range, she explained to her crew. They use their superior technology to stay safe while they destroy their enemies. We're going to get in close where their advantages don't matter as much. The training was intense. Human pilots learned to fight in three-dimensional space battles. Ground forces practiced urban warfare in the low-gravity environments of asteroid colonies. Engineers worked to integrate human and alien technologies into new hybrid systems. Dr. Maria Santos, working with the xenobiology team, made another important discovery. The hegemony species we've identified all share certain characteristics. They're highly intelligent but not very aggressive. It appears that in most cases, intelligence and aggression are inversely related in evolutionary development. What does that mean for us? Asked Admiral Williams. It means we're an anomaly. Humans developed high intelligence while retaining our aggressive, competitive nature. The hegemony has never encountered anything like us before. As the months passed, long-range sensors began detecting disturbances at the edge of the solar system. The enemy was coming, and soon the real test would begin. But humanity was as ready as they could make themselves. Ships, weapons, soldiers, and technology all prepared for the fight that would determine whether Earth remained free or joined the long list of enslaved worlds. The wait was almost over. The hegemony fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system, with a flash of energy that lit up every sensor from Earth to Pluto. 500 massive ships appeared in formation, their dark hulls gleaming with the cold light of distant stars. At the center of the fleet was a command vessel the size of a small moon. On the bridge of that command ship, Overlord Krex studied the primitive system before him. The third planet showed signs of a thriving civilization, with orbital stations and regular traffic between worlds. It would make an excellent addition to the hegemony slave empire. Send the standard demand, Krex ordered his communications officer. The message that reached Earth was simple and had been used on hundreds of worlds before. Inhabitants of the Sol system, you will surrender immediately and prepare for processing. Resistance will result in the destruction of your species. You have one of your planetary rotations to comply. Admiral Tony Rodriguez sat in the command center of the Human Defense Fleet, positioned near Jupiter. He was a veteran of the Mars colonial wars and had volunteered to lead the first line of defense against the aliens. When the surrender demand came through, he smiled grimly. Send our response, he told his communications officer. The message that went back to the hegemony fleet was even simpler. Come and take it. Overlord Krex was surprised by the defiant response. Most species begged for mercy or tried to negotiate. A few threatened resistance, but none had ever been so direct in their refusal. It didn't matter. He had crushed defiant species before. Begin the demonstration. Destroy their outer settlements. The hegemony fleet began moving toward the human colonies in the asteroid belt. Their plan was simple and had worked for centuries. They would destroy a few targets to show their power, then wait for the inevitable surrender. But as they approached the asteroid mining stations, something unexpected happened. The stations didn't try to run or hide. Instead, they turned to face the approaching alien fleet. Captain Lucy Chen commanded the destroyer UES Defiant, hidden among the asteroids near Ceres Station. She watched the alien ships approach on her tactical display, noting their formation and speed. "They're not even trying to defend themselves," said her tactical officer. "They think this is going to be easy." Lucy smiled. "Let's show them how wrong they are. All ships, this is Defiant. Execute attack pattern Alpha." The human fleet erupted from hiding among the asteroids like angry hornets. Ships that the aliens had dismissed as primitive mining vessels suddenly revealed themselves as heavily armed warships. Railgun rounds screamed through space at incredible speeds, followed by swarms of missiles and kinetic projectiles. The first volley caught the hegemony completely by surprise. Their energy shields, designed to absorb laser and plasma fire, were useless against solid projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. Tungsten rods punched through alien hulls like paper, while missile warheads exploded against unprotected armor. 3 hegemony cruisers were crippled in the first 30 seconds of combat. Their crews, who had never experienced real damage to their ships, panicked and broke formation. "Impossible," breathed Overlord Krex as damage reports flooded his command center. "No primitive species has weapons that can penetrate our defenses." Admiral Rodriguez watched the battle unfold from his command ship. The aliens were responding now, their energy weapons lashing out at human vessels. But the humans had learned from studying the captured data cores. They knew how to avoid the worst of the alien fire while closing to point-blank range. The UES Defiant darted between 2 alien destroyers, her railguns firing continuously. The depleted uranium slugs tore through both ships, leaving them drifting and powerless. Lucy Chen felt a savage satisfaction as she watched the alien vessels burn. "All human ships focus fire on their command vessels," ordered Admiral Rodriguez. "Take out their coordination and the rest will fall apart." But the space battle was only part of the fight. On Ceres Station, Major Carl Thompson prepared his ground forces for the alien landing. The hegemony had sent dropships filled with their slave soldiers, expecting easy conquest of the mining facility. The slave soldiers that emerged from the landing craft were a mix of different species, all controlled by neural implants that forced them to obey hegemony commands. They moved with mechanical precision toward the human positions. "Remember, they're not the enemy," Carl told his soldiers over the radio. "The real enemy is the technology controlling them." When the alien forces got within range, Carl activated the electromagnetic jamming arrays that Dr. Johnson had designed. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The slave soldiers stumbled and fell as their neural implants overloaded and shut down. For the first time in decades, maybe centuries, the enslaved beings remembered who they were. They looked around in confusion, then rage as they realized what had been done to them. Instead of attacking the humans, they turned on their hegemony overseers. The scene was repeated at mining stations across the asteroid belt. Slave armies that were supposed to capture human facilities instead became liberation forces, fighting alongside their former targets against their mutual oppressors. Overlord Krex watched his carefully planned assault collapse into chaos. The primitive humans were not only fighting back effectively, they were turning his own forces against him. This had never happened before in the long history of hegemony conquest. "Sir, we're receiving reports from across the fleet," his tactical officer reported. "The humans are jamming our slave control frequencies. Our ground forces are in full revolt." "Then we'll have to do this the hard way," Krex snarled. "Order all ships to target the human installations directly. If we can't enslave them, we'll destroy them." But the human fleet wasn't finished. As the hegemony ships regrouped for a direct assault, Admiral Rodriguez launched the second phase of his attack. Ships that had been hiding behind moons and asteroids throughout the outer system suddenly appeared, attacking the alien rearguard. The battle raged for hours among the asteroids and moons of the outer system. Human ships, smaller and more maneuverable than their alien counterparts, darted in and out of cover while their weapons slowly wore down the hegemony fleet. Captain Lucy Chen found herself in a running battle with an alien heavy cruiser. The enemy ship was bigger and more powerful, but she used the asteroid field to her advantage, hiding behind rocks and emerging to fire before disappearing again. "Ma'am, their shields are down to 60%, reported her tactical officer. "Then let's finish this," Lucy replied. "All weapons, full spread, target their reactor section." The concentrated fire from the Defiance railguns and missile launchers overwhelmed the alien ship's remaining defenses. The cruiser exploded in a brilliant flash that lit up the entire asteroid field. By the end of the day, the hegemony had lost over 100 ships and most of their ground forces. The survivors retreated to the edge of the system, their confidence shattered by the unexpected resistance. For the first time in their long history, the hegemony had met a species that not only fought back, but fought back successfully. Dr. Maria Santos stared at the captured hegemony data cores in her laboratory on Mars, her mind racing as she pieced together the most important discovery of the war. For 3 weeks since the first battle, she had been studying everything the humans had learned about their enemies, and what she found changed everything. "Admiral Williams, you need to see this immediately," Maria said into her communication device. 20 minutes later, Admiral Kate Williams stood in the lab with General Frank Miller and Dr. Alex Johnson, watching as Maria explained her findings on the holographic display. "The hegemony has been conquering species for over 2,000 years, Maria began, pointing to the timeline on her screen. "But they've never encountered anything like us. Look at this pattern." The display showed dozens of alien species that had been enslaved by the hegemony. Each one followed the same development path. They had evolved intelligence, built civilizations, reached space travel, and then gradually became peaceful as their technology advanced. Every single species the hegemony conquered had evolved past warfare before they developed advanced technology, Maria continued. They became passive, cooperative, focused on art and philosophy instead of conflict. It made them easy targets. General Miller frowned as he studied the data. "Are you saying that intelligence and aggression can't coexist?" "Not can't," Maria replied. "Don't. In every case we've found, when a species reaches high intelligence, they naturally become less aggressive. Fighting and war become things of the past. They focus on peaceful development." Dr. Johnson leaned forward. "But humans are different." "Completely different," Maria confirmed. "We're an evolutionary anomaly. We developed high intelligence while keeping our competitive, aggressive nature. We reached space travel while still being warriors. The hegemony has literally never encountered anything like us." Admiral Williams felt the pieces clicking together in her mind. "That's why their tactics don't work on us. They expect civilized surrender after a show of force because every other intelligent species would do exactly that." "More than that," said Maria. "Look at their military structure. The hegemony doesn't really have warriors. They have technicians who operate advanced weapons from safe distances. They've never had to develop real combat tactics because they've never faced real resistance." General Miller smiled grimly. "They're bullies who've never been punched back." The implications were enormous. Maria brought up another display showing hegemony ship designs and weapon systems. Their entire military is built around intimidation and overwhelming technological superiority. "But they have critical weaknesses that no one has ever exploited." "Such as?" asked Admiral Williams. "Their command structure is completely centralized. If you can disrupt their communications, their entire fleet becomes a collection of individual ships with no coordination. Their weapons are designed for long-range engagement against enemies that will try to run away, and their shields, while powerful against energy weapons, were never designed to stop kinetic projectiles because no intelligent species still use them." Dr. Johnson was already thinking ahead. "If we can capture more of their technology, study their fleet movements and communication protocols, we could do more than just defend Earth," Maria said quietly. "We could liberate their entire empire." The room fell silent as the full scope of what she was suggesting sank in. They weren't just fighting for survival anymore. They were looking at the possibility of freeing dozens of enslaved species across the galaxy. Admiral Williams made a decision that would change the course of the war. "We need to capture a hegemony command ship intact." "Can it be done?" General Miller nodded slowly. "It would be dangerous but possible. We'd need to get close enough to board one of their ships without destroying it. Over the following days, a daring plan took shape. Commander Sue Roberts, who specialized in stealth operations, would lead a small task force to capture a hegemony cruiser that had been separated from the main fleet during the first battle. The target ship was trying to repair damage near one of Jupiter's moons, apparently waiting for rescue from the main fleet. It was alone, vulnerable, and packed with the technology and information humanity needed. Sue Roberts studied the alien ship through her periscope as her stealth vessel drifted closer. The UES Shadow was a new design, built specifically for covert operations. Its hull absorbed radar and other detection methods, making it nearly invisible to enemy sensors. "Target is 2 kilometers away and still hasn't detected us," reported her tactical officer. "Their damage appears to be to their main engines and communication array." "Perfect," Sue replied. "That means they can't call for help or run away. Launch the boarding pods." The boarding operation was unlike anything humans had attempted before. Special Forces soldiers in powered armor launched from concealed tubes, using maneuvering thrusters to reach the alien ship without being detected by its automated defenses. Sergeant Dan Kelly led the first team through the alien airlock. The interior of the hegemony ship was strange and unsettling, with corridors designed for creatures taller than humans and lighting that hurt human eyes. "Remember, we need prisoners and data," Sue's voice crackled through their helmet radios. "Try to take the bridge and engineering intact." The aliens aboard the ship were not warriors. They were technicians and administrators who had never expected to face hand-to-hand combat. When armed humans burst onto their bridge, most of them simply surrendered. The capture of the hegemony cruiser provided humanity with a treasure trove of intelligence. Computer cores filled with star charts, fleet movements, communication codes, and most importantly, the locations of slave worlds throughout the galaxy. Dr. Alex Johnson worked with the alien computers for days, translating and cataloging everything they found. "Kate, this is incredible," he told Admiral Williams during one briefing. "We now know the location of every major hegemony installation within 50 light years." But the most shocking discovery came when they interrogated the captured alien officers. The hegemony wasn't just a military empire. It was an entire civilization built on the belief that slavery was natural and necessary. "They actually believe they're helping the species they enslave," reported the interrogation team. "In their minds, they're saving primitive civilizations from their own violent nature by forcing them to be peaceful." Admiral Williams felt sick as she read the reports. "They think they're doing good. It gets worse," continued the report. "The enslaved species are used for more than just labor. They're breeding programs designed to create more docile and controllable populations. Some species have been modified so much that they can't survive without hegemony control." The revelation spread through the human forces like wildfire. This wasn't just a war for survival. It was a war against an empire that had committed genocide on a galactic scale, erasing the natural development of dozens of intelligent species. General Frank Miller addressed his troops that evening. "We know the truth now. The hegemony isn't just our enemy. They're the enemy of every free-thinking being in the galaxy. We're not just fighting for Earth. We're fighting for the right of every species to determine its own destiny." The captured intelligence revealed something else crucial. The hegemony empire was vast but not as strong as it appeared. Their forces were spread thin across hundreds of star systems, maintaining control through fear and superior technology, rather than actual military strength. "If we hit them hard and fast at multiple points," Admiral Williams explained to the War Council, "we could start a chain reaction. Free enough enslaved populations and the entire empire could collapse." The war was about to enter a new phase, and humanity was ready to take the fight to the enemy. Admiral Paul Jackson stood on the bridge of the flagship UES Liberation, watching as the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled prepared for their final assault. 6 months had passed since the first battle, and now 500 human warships surrounded by twice as many vessels from freed alien species were ready to strike at the heart of the hegemony empire. The plan was called Operation Shattered Chains, and it was audacious beyond anything humans had attempted before. Instead of a single massive attack, they would hit 12 different hegemony strongholds simultaneously, freeing enslaved populations and crippling the Empire's ability to coordinate a response. "All task force commanders report ready," announced the communications officer. The voices of human and alien captains filled the bridge as they confirmed their positions throughout the galaxy. The alliance that humanity had built was unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. The Zephyrians, freed from a hegemony processing plant 3 months earlier, had brought advanced sensor technology that could detect cloaked ships. The Karathi, liberated from mining operations near the galactic core, contributed energy weapons that perfectly complemented human kinetic systems. Captain Dan Kelly commanded one of the stealth ships that would infiltrate the slave worlds ahead of the main assault. His mission was simple but dangerous. Get close enough to broadcast the electromagnetic frequencies that would disable the neural control implants, keeping millions of beings enslaved. Remember, Admiral Jackson's voice came through the fleet communication system. We're not conquerors. We're liberators. Every being we free today becomes an ally in the fight for galactic freedom. The first target was a massive slave processing facility orbiting the hegemony industrial world of Nexus Prime. The facility held over 2 million enslaved beings from dozens of different species, all waiting to be shipped to work camps throughout the Empire. Captain Dan Kelly's stealth ship, the UES Phantom, drifted silently toward the orbital platform. The hegemony guards had no idea that their most secure facility was about to become the first domino to fall in their empire's collapse. Electromagnetic jammers are online, reported his technical officer. We're in range. Do it, Dan ordered. The invisible wave of electromagnetic energy washed over the processing facility like a tide of freedom. Throughout the massive structure, neural implants suddenly sparked and died. For the first time in years, decades, or even centuries, millions of enslaved beings remembered who they were. The result was immediate and devastating for the hegemony. Guards who had controlled the facility with ease suddenly found themselves facing an army of angry, liberated slaves. The uprising spread through every level of the station in minutes. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy as human stealth ships struck slave facilities on 12 different worlds. The hegemony's communication networks were jammed by the massive electromagnetic interference arrays that Dr. Johnson had designed, preventing them from coordinating any response. On the hegemony capital world, High Overlord Zeth watched in horror as reports flooded in from across the Empire. Slave revolts were erupting everywhere. His fleets were scattered and unable to communicate, and these impossible humans were somehow striking targets hundreds of light years apart simultaneously. How is this possible? He demanded of his advisors. No species has ever had the coordination to mount an attack of this scale. But the humans weren't finished. Admiral Paul Jackson led the main assault fleet toward the capital system, knowing that destroying the hegemony's command structure would cripple their ability to maintain control over their remaining territories. The battle for the capital system was the largest space engagement in galactic history. The hegemony had gathered their most powerful ships to defend their homeworld, but they faced an enemy unlike any they had encountered before. Admiral Nancy Foster commanded the heavy assault group, her flagship UES Retribution, leading a formation of human dreadnoughts and alien heavy cruisers. The hegemony defenders tried to maintain their traditional long-range engagement, but the human-led alliance closed to point-blank range where their superior tactics could be used effectively. All ships, target their command vessels, Nancy ordered as her fleet crashed into the hegemony defensive line. Break their coordination and the rest will fall apart. The battle raged for hours around the capital world. Hegemony ships designed for easy victories against passive enemies found themselves outmaneuvered and outfought by an alliance that had learned to use every advantage. Captain Lucy Chen, now commanding a heavy cruiser, led her squadron in a desperate assault on the hegemony command station orbiting the capital. The massive structure was heavily defended, but it was also the key to the Empire's control over hundreds of star systems. "Ma'am, their defenses are too strong," reported her tactical officer as enemy fire hammered their shields. "We can't get close enough for a clean shot." Lucy looked at the tactical display and made the hardest decision of her career. "All power to engines. We're going to ram them." Her crew understood immediately. They had all volunteered for this mission knowing they might not return home. The heavy cruiser UES Vengeance accelerated toward the command station, her railguns firing continuously to clear a path through the defensive fire. The impact when Lucy's ship struck the command station was visible from the planet's surface. The explosion tore through both vessels, but it achieved its goal. The hegemony's central command center was destroyed, and with it their ability to control their vast empire. High Overlord Zeth died in that explosion, along with the command staff that had directed the enslavement of dozens of species. Without their leadership, the remaining hegemony forces quickly lost cohesion and began surrendering or fleeing. Across the galaxy, the news of the capital's fall spread like wildfire. On world after world, enslaved populations rose up against their captors. Hegemony garrisons found themselves outnumbered and isolated, with no hope of reinforcement or rescue. The empire that had ruled through fear for 2,000 years collapsed in less than a week. Some hegemony worlds surrendered peacefully, their populations finally understanding the horror of what their civilization had done. Others fought to the end, refusing to accept that their way of life was over. Jake Morrison, the captain who had first discovered the truth about the hegemony, found himself standing in the ruins of the alien processing station where it all began. But this time he wasn't alone. Representatives from dozens of freed species had gathered to witness the formal establishment of the Galactic Liberation Council. 6 months ago, we learned that we were not alone in the universe, Jake said to the assembled delegates. We learned that intelligence and freedom were under attack by those who believed that slavery was natural and necessary. Today we proved that they were wrong. The new alliance was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of conquest and domination, it was built on the principle that every intelligent being had the right to determine their own destiny. Earth became the headquarters of this new council, not because humans demanded it, but because the freed species recognized that humanity had been willing to fight for the freedom of strangers. Dr. Maria Santos, now serving as the council's chief scientist, worked with representatives from dozens of species to develop new technologies and share knowledge freely among all members. The aggressive, competitive nature that had made humans such effective warriors now drove them to be equally effective peacekeepers and innovators. The hegemony was gone, but its legacy would take generations to heal. Billions of beings had to relearn what it meant to be free, and entire species had to rediscover cultures that had been suppressed for centuries. But for the first time in galactic history, that healing could begin under the protection of those who understood that true strength came not from dominating others, but from standing together against those who would take freedom away. The galaxy was free, and humanity had earned its place as the guardians of that freedom.